When night fell over ancient Rome, it did not arrive with neon signs or glowing windows. Darkness came slowly, like ink spreading across parchment. The last gold of the sun slipped behind tiled rooftops. Smoke from cooking fires drifted into narrow streets, and the steady hum of the city softened into something lower and slower. For many Romans, bedtime was not a dramatic ritual. It was simply the quiet surrender to exhaustion after a long day of labor. Trade, gossip, cooking, arguing, sweeping, hauling, and walking on hard stone roads. The idea of going to bed in Rome depended entirely on who you were. Wealth shaped the night just as much as it shaped the day. A senator in a spacious domus experienced sleep differently from a dock worker in a crowded insula. The materials beneath their backs, the fabric against their skin, and even the air they breathed while resting could be worlds apart. Yet all of them shared certain realities: dim oil lamps, the persistent presence of insects, and the steady awareness that comfort was never guaranteed. In the homes of the wealthy, bedrooms were often small and intentionally simple. Roman houses were designed around an inner courtyard, and sleeping rooms were arranged around this central space. The bedroom was not usually a grand display room. It was more practical than decorative, though wealthy families might paint the walls with delicate frescoes of gardens or mythological scenes. The bed itself was not like a modern mattress on a frame. It was more like a sturdy wooden or bronze structure with woven supports stretched across it. On top of this support lay cushions or a mattress stuffed with materials such as wool, feathers, straw, or even dried leaves. The comfort of that mattress depended on how much money could be spent on stuffing. Wool was common and relatively affordable, though it compressed over time and required shaking out. Feather-stuffed mattresses were softer and more luxurious, but they were expensive and reserved for the elite. Even the shape of the bed varied. Some were simple rectangles, while others had raised ends or carved legs. Wealthy Romans might decorate their bed frames with ivory inlays or intricate carvings, but beneath the ornamentation it was still a firm place to rest, far from the cloud-like beds people imagine today. Blankets and coverings were equally practical. Romans typically used woolen blankets, especially in colder months. Linen sheets were known, but they were not universal. The Mediterranean climate meant that winters in Rome were mild compared to northern Europe, yet nights could still feel cold inside stone walls. Without central heating, warmth came from layered fabric, body heat, and sometimes a small brazier placed in the room before sleep. A brazier was a shallow metal container filled with hot coals, offering a faint glow and a modest source of warmth. It also carried risk. Fumes could build up, and careless use might cause fires. The balance between comfort and danger was delicate. For poor Romans living in insulae, multi-story apartment buildings that crowded the city, sleeping conditions were far less refined. These buildings were often constructed quickly and cheaply, with wood and brick stacked high above narrow streets. The higher floors were the least desirable, yet they were the cheapest and therefore the most populated. Families might share a single small room. Instead of a proper bed frame, some slept on simple pallets laid directly on the floor. These pallets were little more than sacks stuffed with straw or rags. Over time, the stuffing flattened, grew dusty, and absorbed the smells of the household. Privacy was rare in such spaces. A family might eat, talk, argue, mend clothes, and sleep within the same few square meters. When night came, the room transformed by necessity rather than design. A cooking area became a sleeping corner. A bench became a bed for a child. If neighbors were loud, there was no insulation to soften the sound. Arguments, footsteps, crying infants, and the occasional crash of something falling from an upper level drifted easily through thin walls. Oil lamps were the main source of light after sunset. These small clay or metal lamps burned olive oil with a linen wick. They provided a soft flickering glow rather than bright illumination. Most people did not keep lamps burning all night because oil cost money. As a result, darkness was deep and complete once the lamp was extinguished. In that darkness, the mind could wander. Every small sound carried weight. The scuttle of a mouse along a wall, the distant bark of a dog, the murmur of voices from the street below, all became part of the night's quiet soundtrack. Bugs were an inescapable part of Roman sleep. Fleas and lice were common companions in daily life. Bedbugs, in particular, were notorious. The wooden frames and woven supports of beds created countless tiny hiding places. In a warm climate, insects thrived. Even the wealthy could not entirely escape them, though better cleaning and higher quality bedding reduced the problem. There were remedies, of course. Romans believed certain herbs placed near the bed could repel insects. They sometimes smoked rooms with specific plants to drive pests away. But these measures were temporary solutions in a world without modern pest control. The presence of bugs shaped the texture of sleep. Itching in the dark was a familiar sensation. A sudden prick on the skin might pull someone from half-dream into wakefulness. Scratching, turning, shaking out a blanket, these small movements were part of the rhythm of the night. For those who lived close to animals, the problem could intensify. In rural areas outside the city, livestock often stayed near or even within human dwellings. Where animals went, insects followed. Despite these discomforts, Romans valued rest. Sleep was understood as essential for health. Ancient medical writers discussed the importance of balanced sleep, advising neither too much nor too little. They believed that sleep helped the body digest food and restore strength. The evening meal was typically eaten before full darkness, and many people retired not long after. Without electric light to stretch the day, the natural cycle of sunset and sunrise strongly influenced routine. Yet Roman sleep was not always one continuous stretch. Historical evidence suggests that segmented sleep was common in many pre-industrial societies. People might sleep for several hours, wake for a period in the middle of the night, and then return to sleep until dawn. During that waking interval, they might pray, talk quietly, reflect, or even complete small tasks by lamplight. In a world without precise clocks, time flowed differently. Night was not a single block but a landscape with gentle rises and pauses. Season also shaped the experience of sleep. In summer, heat lingered long after sunset. Thick stone walls retained warmth, and crowded apartments grew stuffy. Windows might be open to invite a breeze, but this also allowed noise and insects to enter. In winter, dampness could seep into bedding. Blankets felt heavy with absorbed moisture. The air carried a chill that crept into bones. Romans adapted as best they could, layering clothing or sharing warmth with family members.